With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
On this edition of Into the Fray, I welcome Shawn Farewell on with me, and he has a recently released autobiography titled Fallen from the Light. Shawn, welcome on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So I don't really quite know where you wanted to start. I wasn't going to assume where we should, so I will let you take over and start your incredible story.
Well, I guess we could probably sort of start from the beginning where I came from, just to give the audience a bit of an idea. I was born in 1964 in Montreal. I lived there for 27 years, and then I moved out to Toronto, Ontario, and I've been here now for the last 34 years. So, and through the times, which is the book where it takes you from my birth up to my death and then continues on, that's pretty much where it starts.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, you can plow right through. I will interrupt you and take notes, or if I want to interrupt, I try not to do that very much. That's kind of my MO.
No, I sometimes I'll take a pause just so you can get a word in and just to, allow the audience to sort of sink into this, because there's too much. People that know me, I've could have written almost 3 books through all the experiences that I've been through since I've been here since 1964. But the concept of the book, I'll start with this anyway, so this kind of sparks some interest in people. I don't know if you remember A Christmas Carol with Ebenezer Scrooge, where he's visited by 4 spirits, and he's shown his life. So how I finally put the book together after 15 years of writing, 3 rewrites, I came up with the concept where I'm being guided from 1964 up to now with my guardian angel. So it's a conversation in the book to explain these supernatural-like paranormal experiences that were happening to me as a child and up to this point.
So what were some of the experiences that you had when you were a child?
Well, without giving so much away from the book, I can detail certain things. Like I said, there's other things I could throw in too, which I left out because, again, the book would just go on and on and on with all these events. But I guess probably the first time I saw and not yet communicated with my guardian angel, every soul that is created has a guardian angel assigned to them. They're like a guidance counselor. They guide you through your journey. They're with you for eternity, so they never leave you. And I had the experience when I was about 5 years old. I had a severe asthma attack, which back then they didn't have the technology, let's just say, to help a lot of people with this disease. And I was rushed into the hospital. There's a chance there that I wasn't going to survive. But I still remember every night this lady would come visit me, and she would glow in white. And every time I would see her, I felt comfort. I felt I was safe. Now, could have been a nurse coming to see me. That's possible. But there was something about her energy that I could pick up and feel and sense that made me know that everything was going to be all right.
And is this the same one that, because you sent along the synopsis of the book, is this Gloria that you end up having experiences with later on as well?
A lot of experiences, countless experiences with Gloria, with what was happening. The universe, basically what it was doing for me was it was just slowly introducing me to what is beyond the veil. And so I was having these small experiences, but in time, they got even more, let's say, stronger. And they were just preparing me for what was about to come.
And do you want to get into that a little bit, some of the events?
Well, there's quite a bit, but sure. So I guess we'll go on to like where you hear a lot of people in their stories. I see a lot of stuff on the internet and everything, and most of it is, I would say, pretty close, and a lot of it I just believe people are just making things up. I guess they just do that to who knows whatever their ideas are of doing it. But for me, I want to share my experiences. And again, I tell people, listen, I don't study this stuff. I'm not an expert in this stuff, but at the same time, what I experienced was pretty real. And there's a lot of things I can back it up with, but I think the intriguing part is people want to know if there is life after death. And through my story and the validations that I've received, I know for sure there is another place waiting for us when we're done. But for me, growing up, having this stuff all around me, you start to realize that there's more out there than meets the eye. And we need to have an open mind because there's so many different things that are happening on our planet today. And not just myself having these experiences, but people around the world from different cultures and races, they're having these experiences too. So I wanted to know why this was happening to me. And it got to a certain point in my life, it just then exploded in front of me. So, for example, let's go with animals like dogs and cats. They're spirit detectors, and I've had a couple of experiences, about almost a 20-year gap between two of these experiences, where my dogs were warning me that there was something in the house and they were acting not themselves. Give you an example. One thing I do talk about in the book is my first dog, Bear, where he woke me up about 1 o'clock in the morning and his hair was up. He was growling. He was sitting right in front of me, protecting me. I thought somebody basically broke into the apartment. And I still remember because it was a really hot summer. I was like literally sticking to the bed sheets. And I finally yelled out and screamed, like, whoever's there, show yourself. And something went through me. It literally pushed me back. And at that point, my dog just settled down. And my room felt like a freezer. And I'm looking around the room wondering what just went through me. So this is one of the first experiences, which I detail a bit more in the book about who that spirit was. But that was the first time that I had an actual strong presence. And for what it did to me, the way it ran through my body and pushed me up against the wall was pretty powerful.
And what age were you?
I was around at that time 20, 21, around that age. But the person that lived in that house got sick. I took it over, and it was friends of the family. And at the time, I didn't realize it was her visiting me. She just passed away. And usually, when spirit passes away, they come to revisit places that made them happy. And I know she was happy there. And she knew that I took her apartment over. So she was happy with that. I just think she was coming back just to say thank you, Shawn, for doing what you're doing. And she wasn't there to scare me or anything, but she just wanted me to know that, you know, there's going to be plenty more of this stuff coming down the road.
But you actually physically moved, your body moved and you got pushed up against a wall?
Yeah, it was strong. The force was strong. It literally pushed me right back, probably I would say about 6 inches. And this icy cold feeling that went through my body. Like you got to remember, I'm sitting in a room that is scorching hot. I don't have air conditioning. It's one of those really sticky, muggy nights. And for about 30 seconds, it felt like it was a freezer. My hair was standing, but I was amazed because my dog Bear at that point stopped with the growling. His hair settled on the back of his neck. He was calm. And I just sat there for about a minute or so, just looking around the room, wondering like what just happened to me. Because I didn't know any of this stuff. I was just starting to learn at the time. But, being 20, 21, you just sort of, after a while, you kind of brush it off thinking like, okay, you don't want to tell people about this because, again, people might just think you're crazy.
Yeah, maybe it's like that scene out of, not to compare it to a movie, but out of Ghost, where he finally learns to push the penny on the ground and he shocks himself because it goes so far. So maybe she had been kind of saving up all this energy to get in touch with you, and she went, oops, sorry about that, Shawn.
Yeah, most likely. I mean, Ghost is actually a movie that's actually pretty close to how spirit can work. They could build up a lot of residual energy, either good or bad. In this case, it wasn't bad. It was good. She was just leaving, but she just wanted to leave sort of in a sense, her fingerprint. I would probably say more like spirit print, just to let me know that everything's going to be okay.
So were you always spiritual or religious prior to some of these activities that were going on when you were younger?
No, I remember like I just always as a child, I just had a just did not like religion and just felt that there was something wrong about it. And I was just a child. I didn't understand it. Just they tried to take me to church and everything. I just didn't like even being in church. It just I didn't feel right. I kind of felt out of place. And people talk to me today and they say, "Well, Shawn, do you go to church?" I go, "No, my church is outside on the street." And they look at me and I said, "Because that's where I reach people." I just don't feel, to me, religion is sort of it holds you back from your spiritual side into reaching out is what you want to do because all these different religions have their own different set of rules. For me, I want to believe in the universe. I want to believe in that love and that light that we're supposed to be sharing here while we're on this journey. So that's how I grew up, just believing this way.
So what are some of the other paranormal events that you had prior to your diagnosis?
I think people are going to enjoy when they reach my book because I put the dates and the years in it, so it helps them. It's sort of like a roadmap, and I think once they reach 1987 to 89, when I move into this really old house, at the time the house was about 160, 65 years old, and it was built in 1830 on 200 acres of land. So it was a mansion. So you had to be wealthy to live in this place. But when I moved into it, they broke this home down into 9 apartments. And it was my brother and my friend Mark who we were sharing that place. We all had our bedrooms. And this is where things take a turn. And the spirit activity in this building was strong. And I picked up on it right away. And my brother was feeling it. My roommate was feeling it. But there were other people that were living in that house that we've spoken to that were experiencing something. But for me, it got even stronger.
Okay, so what kind of things were you guys experiencing?
Well, there were times where I'd be sleeping and I could hear all these people walking around the living room. And I'm thinking, okay, what's going on here? Are they having a party at 3 o'clock in the morning? So I would open up the bedroom door to say, "Hey guys, keep it down." And there was nobody there. And the walking would stop. And this was a frequent thing that was happening quite a bit. My mood changes at the time. There was times I was feeling sad, depressed. I felt like crying. And I don't know why. I was just feeling some form of energy that was really, really sad. And then there was other times where you start to sense that somebody's watching you. And I've had people come over and they said the same thing, like, this place is creepy. I feel like somebody's watching me. And then I knew eventually something was going to show itself. And eventually one night it did.
And what did you see?
Well, I lived on the main floor. So in my book, there's a picture of the house, and my bedroom, like I said, is just on the main floor. So anybody can crawl in my window. And I woke up, I don't know, it could have been about 5:30 in the morning. And anytime when you're waking up, you're trying to focus your eyes because you're not fully awake. You're sort of still in that state. It's kind of like a meditated state, but you're slowly coming out of it. And I could see at the edge of the bed, there's a man staring at me. And the first thing in my head came to that somebody crawled through my window. and probably thought they were just going to take advantage of me. And I lifted my body up out of the bed to say, what the? And this was the first time I actually saw spirit energy happen before my eyes. This thing took off towards the ceiling and it swirled like a whirlpool and then disappeared. And I remember just sitting back, staring at the ceiling, wondering, like, what did I just experience? You know, I didn't say anything to anybody at the time because I didn't think people would believe me. But a few weeks later, I was having a conversation with my roommate, Mark, and I decided to share the experience. And he looked at me and he had a similar experience where he fell asleep in the living room and he saw the shadow of a figure of a man on the bathroom door and it was moving. And he told me he was frozen. He couldn't move. So we just looked at each other and just kind of shrugged it off, thinking, okay, it is what it is. Let's just keep going on with our lives. But that wasn't the end of it.
Yeah, go right ahead.
We have this laundry room, which is outside of the house. You have to go outdoors. You got to go into another part of the house and go through sort of like a maze. You got to walk about 10 feet and then hook a left and then walk down to another door to hit the laundry room. And it's kind of creepy in there. There was a time when I was doing my washing and Bear would always come with me. And there was a time I turned around and Bear was looking straight down the hallway and his head was turning back and forth like I thought someone was coming to do their laundry because we all shared that area. And I went to walk over to greet the person because I assumed somebody was coming towards us and there was nobody there. But he kept turning his head like he could see something. So as we were leaving, we walked up to the part where you have to now make another turn. And this is the summer. It's really hot in there. And again, there was this icy patch just in one spot. And the hairs on my arm was standing. And I was looking around going, okay, this is strange. So I just kind of ignored it and moved on and went back to my apartment and just did what I usually do on a Saturday. But what happened is there was a night, it was a Saturday night, but it wasn't that time. It was probably about a few weeks later. Our doorbell's ringing and these people are banging on the door and Mark answers it. And the two ladies that live around the corner, they share an apartment together. They're all freaked out. And I walk into the bedroom and they're like trying to explain what just happened in the laundry room. And I just looked at one of the ladies and I said, so you saw the ghost? Now I never said he or she, I just said you saw the ghost. She looked at me and she said, you've seen him? And then I realized she's seeing something that I'm seeing in this house. So we started to talk and she explained they were in that laundry room and the light went out and they were in pitch black darkness and they were trying to find the light switch. And she said someone walked up behind her and sort of went, and they ran out of there so fast and they were terrified. But they said they've witnessed this old man walking around their apartment. So we've realized we're both experiencing the same thing. But the question is, who is this person and why is he still here? And what's all this paranormal stuff happening? And it was getting stronger. It just wasn't just a one-time event that happened. This was a frequent thing that was going on. So she suggested to reach out to a friend who studies the paranormal. He's at a university in Montreal. But at the time, it never happened. He never came over, but we just continued to live there until finally we all slowly started to move out of there because of the events that were taking place.
I'm sure in that situation, especially since it was a one massive home and then was split into 9 different apartments, that would be a situation where this ghost, this spirit would essentially walk through walls because prior to that, the wall wouldn't have been there.
Well, today I know what was there, but back then, if I would have known what was there, I probably would have left within a week. But there were other spirits trapped in there, and they were reaching out to me for help at the time. And I didn't know any of the history. It took about 22 years later, our time, to sort of uncover the mystery of what was taking place in that house. But I had a friend one night, we were coming back because we lived downtown Montreal. So we were close to the bars and we were just left. And I had to get my dog out to go do his walk, and I offered my friend to take her to the bus and everything, that she can go home. I said, here, let's just pop in. Let me get my dog and say hi to my brother and my friend, because she knew my brother and my friend. And I remember as we walked into my place, we were laughing like if we were coming back from a comedy club. And the strangest thing happened. She stopped halfway in the house. She put her hands on her throat like she was choking, and tears were coming down her eyes. And I looked at her and I said, what's wrong? And she said, I can't stay here. And she ran out. And I went after her and she begged me. She was begging me not to bring her back into that house. And so I took her to the bus and she went home. And believe it or not, she has never spoken to me of what she experienced that moment when she walked in that house. But what she saw was horrifying.
Did she go into detail about what she saw?
She didn't want to tell me. She was terrified. She was so
Oh,
terrified.
even now, she never has spoken about it.
Since this day, and I'm going back to that happened around 1988. She has never talked to me about what she saw. But the strangest thing is, we're friends on Facebook, and when I finally posted my book is out on Amazon, she was actually the first person to push the like button. Kind of strange. I think a time will come she'll tell me what she saw. I know what she saw. I knew what she saw now today. I knew what happened in that house. It's a very dark secret. And there were a lot of people that lost their lives in that house. So the residual effects that were in there were pretty powerful. This is why we kept hearing all this walking. It was all these lost souls trapped in that house. And they were choosing me to set them free. But at the time, I had no idea what was going on.
So what was the dark secret about the house?
Well, back in the 1800s, some very famous people lived there, and eventually the house was sold. So again, you would have to be a very wealthy man to live in that house. There was a man that lived in there. He was very wealthy. He had a family, but he wanted to respect because of his money and his power that he had. But at the same time, he had a hate for women. And the story was, what I was gathering in 2011 is that he murdered his wife and daughter, and he raised his son to do what he did. He had a hired hand that would lure prostitutes into the house, and he would strangle them to death. And that hit me right there. Strangled him to death. My friend grabbed her throat like she was choking. So it finally came together, realizing she saw what this man was doing to these women. And he kept them in there like prisoners. He did not want to let them go. He was going to remain in eternity with these spirits, but these spirits wanted to go home. They were trapped. And this is why they were reaching out to me for the 2 years. That's why I was feeling all this mixed emotion, the sadness, the depression. And I'm a very happy-go-lucky person. I didn't understand why, but this is because their spirit energy was around me, and they were trying to communicate and touch me and let me know that, can you help us, please? But even though that in the physical realm we have time, in the spiritual realm, time does not exist. So even though 22 years later, the truth had finally come out, that could be 2 seconds in their lifetime.
Makes you wonder if his wife and daughter or others were interred physically on the property.
They were actually.
Oh,
There were times when when all this started happening. I'll have to go back to 2011 when I posted a short story on my Facebook page. We were getting close to Halloween, and I thought, I'm going to make a little story called The Haunted House, the Whole Story. So I wrote this little short story about that place, but I needed a picture. And I went through my photo albums, and I'm digging through the closet trying to find things, and I found my old photo album from 1988. I pulled it out and I found the picture of the house. I'm thinking, wow, okay, I'm going to scan this and post it to the story. Now, back in 1988, we didn't have all this digital cameras or anything. We had a tiny little camera. You had to take the film out. You had to go to the drugstore. And then about a day later, you went back and you picked up your pictures. And that's how the process was back then. And you just shuffle through your pictures going, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. You're not really focusing on the pictures. You're just looking at them. And I put them in my photo album and you put it away. It's just part of your life. So I post this on Facebook, and about 4 hours later, I come back and I start reading quotes. But these are quotes from mediums around the world. Every medium is telling me to stay away from this. This is dark. This is evil. And one of the mediums, she says, oh, I could see the spirits in the window. And I'm thinking, like, what? So I start to examine the picture, and the closer that I start to examine, I could see all these people looking at me through the window. And there's one picture above my bedroom where you could see him, and his face is demon like. And there's faces all around him. And one of the other windows, you could see all these people looking at me. It's like back then they all came to the window knowing that I was taking a snapshot, knowing that one day that snapshot would come to life, and that would start the freedom for these spirits to finally get to go home.
Is that photo included in your book, Shawn?
It is actually.
Awesome.
It's kind of I looked at it, I wish the picture was just a bit bigger, but I know I have it on my Facebook page. But even I show people today, because you can stretch it on your digital phone, because I have it on my phone. And even when I show people, I go, what do you see in the windows? People can see it, and they're just floored by this. And it's like, this is what I was going through back then. Nobody understood, because again, like, Shannon, people would think you're crazy saying, yeah, I'm experiencing all this supernatural stuff in my apartment. People tend to stay away from you.
Well, and as you said, these things they're timeless. They don't have the same sense of time that we do. So I would imagine that if that house, which is now a part, or at least at that time was 9 apartments, is still standing, I would imagine that those people are still wandering around in that place, unfortunately.
Well, I don't want to give it away, but they're no longer there because
Okay.
something happened pretty powerful. And this is also part of the story. But going back to the wife and the daughter who was murdered, I got when I posted that, I was in contact with a medium. Her name's Carolyn. She's in the story. And then I got contacted from a medium from England. His name was Bobby. And Bobby sent me a message, and he was telling me that the spirits are talking to him ever since I posted the picture with the story. They, for some reason, were communicating with him. He said, I know you're going to think this is crazy. And Bobby worked with me. I would call him like a spiritual detective. He was digging up all this stuff and everything from that house and the history and everything. And this energy started getting stronger. So he brought in a third medium from Australia, a very young girl named Beck, who was truly gifted. She could see spirits since she's a child, and it hasn't stopped for her. And there was a night we were talking on Skype, and as we're talking, Beck, she kind of went, ooh. And I said, what's wrong, Beck? And she could see this little girl standing beside me. And I believed it was the little girl it was his daughter, but she felt safe with me. So Beck saying, yeah, she just loves standing by you. And I said, okay, that's fine. And then Beck made another sound, and she sees 3 ladies sitting in the back of my basement, dressed like back in that timeline of the 1800s, the way they have the dresses and everything. And she said they're just sitting there like if they're having tea or whatever, very comfortable, listening to us talk and everything. And then within seconds, they disappeared quickly. And she saw a man walking around my basement like he was searching for something. And it happened to be him, the one who murdered all those ladies. And he was communicating with Beck, basically warning me to stay away because he did not want to give up what was his. And I think I really made him angry when I told him that those spirits don't belong to you and they're going to be free. And I said, I'm taking you down. He didn't like that very much. Now, to be honest with you, Shannon, I had no idea what I was getting myself into. But I realized that if these people, these spirits that were trapped that need to go home, they should be going home. And he had no right to hold on to them, let alone what he did to them in the real life.
Gosh, how awful. There is truly some, I mean, demonic people walking around with us.
I believed he was influenced, probably most likely by the demonic side. He just had hate in him. He was what you would call an unfixable soul. And he got off on knowing that he had this power and control over these spirits. But he didn't like the fact that I stood up to him. And I told him, I said, "You're going down." I said, "These spirits are going to be free and you're done." And he took off, and he was basically gathering an army of dark spirits to take me on in pretty much a fight to my life. He did not like the fact that I was going to take away what he thought was his property.
Shawn, are you aware if he, lived a long life and died naturally in the home, or did he move away and die somewhere else?
I have no knowledge of how his death was, but for some reason, I see through all my experiences, I see the physical realm. I've also been in the spiritual realm, and that's due to when I died from cancer. But we also have a place called the in between, and souls get trapped there, and they reach out to people like us to help them open up a portal to home. Now, there's good portals and there's bad portals, and there's things that I talk about. I had a gateway in my basement, and that's another topic in my book that I talk about. But we can call upon Archangel Michael to come down, open up the portal, and take these spirits home. And you don't want to be trapped in the in between, because that's where the torment and the pain and the suffering continues, and that's where also the demonic like to play. It's your energy that they feed off of. And once you start to give into that, they have full control. And this is what he had over his victims, because he took their physical life. Now he kept them trapped in the in between.
So let's get to your cancer diagnosis and move through some of what happened after.
Well, I still believe they back when I lived in the haunted house, let's say from 87 to 89, I left. And then in 91, I came out here to Toronto. They were still attached to me, and I didn't know this. And I think he was trying to find a way to keep me away. And my dog Bears, like I said, he's always been my protector against spirits. He's always warned me when there's things around me. And there was a night he started breathing funny. And the next day I took him to the vet, and he had cancer filling his lungs up. And there was nothing left to do. Like, we couldn't save him. And they said you could take him to a specialist and get a second opinion. So that night I decided, okay, we'll give it one shot. Maybe there's something we can do to help him. I remember waking up that morning, and the left side of my neck was so painful. I thought maybe I slept wrong, but I brushed it off. I got up. I took my dog to the specialist. They said there's nothing they can do. The best thing you can do is let him go. So I took him back to my vet and basically stayed with him till the very end. I always tell people I put my nose on his nose. I wanted him to see me before he closed his eyes. Then I went home, and I'm sitting there, and my neck is killing me. And I asked my fiance if she can just try and get this kink out of my neck. And she started to massage my neck. And then she says, "There's a lump in your neck." And I'm thinking, oh, great. Like, what now? So I go see my family doctor, who was down the street, and he decided to do a chest x-ray. And I kind of looked at him. I said, "It's in my neck." He said, "I know." He said, "Let's just do a chest x-ray." So we did a chest x-ray, and I only lived like 5 minutes away. I went home. He called me back. He said, "I need you to come back. I want to do another x-ray. I just want to make sure the film is okay." So we do another x-ray, and basically what he's looking at is a very large cloud formation on my left lung. And it was massive, huge. It's about 7 centimeters wide. He knew what it was. And then I went through the whole process of biopsy, blood work, scans, and then basically was diagnosed with one of the worst non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that you could have at that time. It was T cell. Your T cells are mostly very important, Shannon, because those are your cancer fighters. You need those to destroy the cancer cells. Mine were infected with the cancer cells, which meant I didn't have much of a chance to survive. So they had me scheduled for 8 rounds of chemotherapy, and I saw my grandmother go through it. I saw friends go through it, and I didn't believe in chemo. And I told my fiance, I'm not doing this. And she was upset and everything because she's the one that was asking me to do this. You got to do this. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I even told her, pack your bags, go back to Montreal, live with your mom. I'll live out whatever time I have here. I just don't want to do this. So in a sense, I was giving up. And the thing is about the spiritual realm, they hear all this stuff. And so does the demonic. And they were happy that I was giving up because they felt now I was easy pickings. And that night that I went to bed, this was going to be one of my first experiences with a demon. I remember sort of waking up and I'm looking at the corner of the floor, and that's where Barry used to sleep. And used to reach my hand out, he could lick my hand. That's how close it was. And I was sad. I was everything that was going on in my life was just going wrong. And I just kept staring at the floor. And just out of nowhere, this head appears from the floor. It's this beautiful woman, and she's staring right at me. And then her eyes changed as a serpent, and then she started to smile, and all her teeth were jagged, sharp. And it's like her face, kind of like a rattlesnake when they shake. And then I felt I was choking. And I don't know if you ever had the feeling where you had the wind knocked out of you, where you're trying to gasp for air. That's how it felt. It felt like she was trying to pull my soul from my body. And I just remember like trying to scream at this thing to get away from me. And then something severed us and I snapped out of it. And I remember looking at my fiance, and I jumped out of bed and I ran into the living room. I got on my knees and I was praying to God, whatever that thing was in my bedroom, please get rid of it. And I apologized that I was quitting. I don't want to quit. I'm going to fight whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, I will fight. But please, whatever that thing was, get rid of it. So from that point, I started the treatment, and I talk about this in the book. There were 8 sessions to go through, but they stopped the 8th one because there was no change in the treatment. So they suggested I go see people at the bone marrow clinic. And if the aggressive chemotherapy, which they're going to try on me, if it works, then I'll be able to have a bone marrow transplant, which could possibly save my life. But at this time, things weren't going well. And so I went through the 2 months of aggressive chemotherapy, which both times I went through it, I've had some really bad experiences and almost died going through the treatments. And after all that, there was no change. So basically the medical field said, sorry, Shawn, we can't save you. They probably gave me about 3 months left to live because lymphoma can spread so quickly through the body. There's nothing that you can do. So I said goodbye to my family. I canceled the wedding because I was engaged to be married. And I started to prepare my funeral. And at this point, I just got to live out whatever time I have left. So I know it's in about September, and I think it was around my father's birthday, actually, the 12th. And like every night I go to bed, and this night I fell asleep, and then I hear this woman calling me. Now, at the time, I didn't know it was Gloria, but it was Gloria calling me. And I could see these 3 lights coming down from the ceiling, and she's telling me to reach. And I felt myself lifting up as I'm reaching. And I turned around, and there I was lying in bed beside my fiance, and I realized I'm dead. But there was no fear. There was no pain, no suffering. There was this love that doesn't even exist here on earth. And my soul, which is energy, was attached to these 3 lights of energy that was pulling me in. And then I heard a voice come to me through the consciousness telling me that everything was going to be all right, but you have to go back. And Shannon, I didn't want to go back because I suffered over 7 months in a hospital, not from the cancer, but from the treatment. I was so done with it. I was ready to go home. But the universe had other plans for me. I probably had a contract signed with them that I need to finish something first before I go home. Now, it's medically impossible that I should be having this conversation with you. Even the doctors today can't believe I'm still alive. But whatever this energy force was at the time was powerful. It had so much beautiful, powerful energy that, again, you forget about everything that's here. You couldn't care less. I want to go this direction. This is nice. Then it severed me, and I found myself falling so fast. It's like being on a roller coaster. When you're going down, you can feel those G forces, but it's like 1,000 times more. And it was a jolt into my body, and I sprung out of bed. I had this gasp of air come out of me. And I remember my fiance was panicking because she figured I was having a heart attack due to the side effects of chemotherapy. I tried to explain to her what I just experienced, but she didn't want to hear it. Didn't want to know about it. Just go back to sleep. And I lay there for hours, Shannon, staring at the ceiling, wondering if these three lights were going to come back. And then 2 weeks later, I was back in the hospital, and the strangest thing, the cancer throughout my body was dead, which is medically impossible. And the doctors are asking me, what did you do? Now, I didn't want to tell them what I just explained to you, because I would go from the oncology ward to the psych ward. But I knew that there was something that I had to do. Now, I had no idea what my purpose was going to be, but it took 17 years, which came to 2011, and this is when everything exploded.
So at first, did your fiance just assume that you had a dream?
She didn't want to talk about it, Shannon. I think she's terrified. She's terrified of this stuff. We've been together since '89, so that was like about close to 4 years together. I've had some other experiences. She just didn't want to know. And it's frustrating on my part because, when something happens like this to somebody, they're not quite sure yet, who to tell or how to share it. But it alters your life. You're changed forever. You get a chance to see what's behind the curtains, and they get to see you from the other side. This is where things change.
Now, it sounds like Gloria kept visiting you, kept being in touch with you over certain periods of time in your life. Is that correct? Like, did the cancer come back and then she came back, or was the cancer gone forever?
Well, up to this date, it's been over, I think, 31 years cancer free. I always believe that if I'm going to leave this world, it won't be through cancer. Hopefully, it'll be where I go to sleep and it's peaceful, which is actually a nice way to go. And I don't have fear of death because there's no such thing as death. Once you get to see the other side and understand how it works, there's no fear. And Gloria, the greatest thing about what happened is that she finally revealed herself to me in my basement. She channeled through Carolyn, which was the most craziest thing. We were on Skype, and Carolyn, she's from Arkansas, so she has that Arkansas accent. And we were having a conversation, and it's like somebody cut in through our line on Skype. That's what I thought, because sometimes I wasn't too sure about the technology back then. And this woman starts talking, but she's speaking a language I don't even know what it is. And she's just going really fast. And I'm trying to interrupt her by saying, hello, who is this? And she wouldn't stop. She just kept going and going and going and going. So I figured, okay, I'm going to wait till this person stops. But I kept calling out for Carolyn, but Carolyn wasn't responding to me. Then everything got silent. And finally, I said, hello. And then I could hear this woman's voice, but it wasn't Carolyn's voice. And she said, Shawn Barry. And I said, yes. I said, who are you? She goes, I'm Gloria, your guardian angel. And I'm like, okay. And then she says, I don't have much time, but I have a message from God and I need to share it with you right away. So she starts to tell me all these different things. Like, she said that I'm going to receive these keys and they're going to open many doors. And I'm kind of thinking, okay, how's that going to work out? And then she kept on going with a few other things. But one thing she warned me about at the time, she said, Shawn Barry, beware, the beast is near. Now you start to think, okay, what does she mean by that? And then finally she left, and then Carolyn snapped out of it. And I told Carolyn what happened, and Carolyn says she has no clue. She said, like, when an angel takes your vessel over, you're sort of in a state of sleep. And Carolyn said to me, that's not the first time angels have come to her and used her as a vessel to communicate. So, but I was being warned, and there was a lot of dark energy building around me because, again, they did not want what I was supposed to do and share. Because when you share information like this with people, it gives them hope again, takes them away from fear, guides them to the light. Darkness doesn't want this. They want to keep people in the dark. This is how they can control you. So these were the things that I was dealing with in the basement. And then eventually they put a gateway in my basement, which every night in my basement, I would have about 70 to 100 spirits visiting me. There was a gatekeeper by the name of Simon. Carolyn worked with me because she could see them and speak to them. So she was helping me understand what was happening. But the spirits were good that were coming to visit me. There were children, there were men, women. They were celebrating. This was like a victory for the light. And at the time, it was like learning all this stuff was incredible. I had people around the world that would video the gateway because they could see it through Skype. The cameras are amazing what they can pick up. And I did create my own YouTube channel, and there's 3 videos where I'm working with the gateway. And it's just, it was extraordinary learning and understanding who we are and where we come from. But at the same time, everything else in life, the physical sense of life, can be very harsh. And these were the challenges that I had to deal with in my life. My life was sort of falling apart at that time too, but it wasn't my choice.
So on this YouTube channel you mentioned, you can actually physically see in the video this gateway that you're talking about?
Correct. I do a demonstration where I go into the back and I shut the light off, and I come back and I put my phone up onto the monitor, and basically before I turn the light off, you can see the energy. So if I turn that light off, you shouldn't see anything. It should be pitch black. And I go back and I show it, and nope, there's that energy. It's still there. And it shifts, it changes, it goes to a stronger energy, to a lighter energy. In one of the videos, you could actually see a figure of a large face looking right at me. It's pretty impressive.
So through the gate, you say they were all good things that were coming through, or people that were coming through. What about dark things? I mean, what other sorts of darkness had you experienced?
Well, people can open up portals, but ones who practice black magic. And there was a night I was on with Carolyn, and we started to hear these really weird sounds coming through our speakers. And basically, it was like a low frequency voice was coming through. You could hear mini demon, mini demon, mini demon, mini. That's what it sounded like until Carolyn said, "Shawn, that's many demons." And someone opened up a portal, you could say, to hell, and you could hear them coming through, but we could also hear someone screaming for help. Carolyn, who's her abilities as a medium are like strong, and she said those are trapped souls that are trying to get out. And through prayer and everything, we managed to pull this one guy out who overdosed on heroin, and his soul went directly to hell. This is what she was picking up. She said, we got him out, but we got to close that portal because we don't want the demons coming out into your basement. So we managed to close that. Then we're trying to figure out who opened that up, because we had a gateway that was given to me as a gift from God. And there was a gatekeeper in there who controlled the flow, but who opened up this dark one? But there was still a force out there trying to stop me. And they continued to do this. This was going on for years later, where they kept attacking me, trying to stop me from sharing my story to people. Like I explained to people, I've rewritten my book 3 times, but there were so many distractions and things that were happening in my life that were preventing me from doing this. And this is what darkness wants to do. It doesn't want people to know the truth. They don't want people to know that they actually even exist. It's like some people say, I don't believe in the devil. And I said, well, that's good, because he believes in you. And that's what they like. They like the fact that you don't believe into this, because then that's how they take advantage of you. They like to go after people that are weak, broken, that their life is like, they feel like ending their life. And I look back when I was going through my cancer, I was giving up. They knew that, and that's why they came for me. But if you have strong faith in the universe and you truly believe in that light of power and love, and that's going to save you. But the dark energies, again, they want to pull you down where they are. And this is what they kept trying to do over the years as I was trying to get the story out.
And you say that gateway was a gift to you from God?
It was actually. I had to close it because in my story, my marriage came to an end. I think it was just too much for my wife to handle. And so I closed it down and I left. But other things started happening even afterwards. I got my own apartment. And for example, I remember one night I'm talking to a friend through Skype and she said to me, "Your face is changing." I've went through these experiences in the basement in the house originally with Carolyn, where I would see spirits passing through my body. I could see it on camera. I could see my face changing. So she took a snapshot and you could actually see the energy running through my face, but behind me is clear. And I said, "Take another picture." Same result. So I said, "Take one more picture." And this is in the book too. I have the 3 photographs in the book. You could actually see my face is distorted with energy, but behind me, there's nothing wrong with the picture. It's clear.
So why do you think that you were chosen for all of this, or even chosen to come back from death?
Well, I gave this a lot of thought, Shannon, and and how I started my book off is I'm sitting in a beautiful garden in heaven, and Archangel Michael comes to me and he says, "Father needs to see you." And I approach this man in a room who's has all these books and paintings, and he's sitting there and he's doing a new painting, and he tells me that he's concerned what's happening here on Earth, and he has a mission for me if I choose to do so. But he warns me that this is going to be a very difficult mission because people are going to try to hurt me, discredit me, even try to kill me. And all the things that he's mentioned actually happened here while I was in on this journey that I'm in right now. So it's like having a contract. I signed the contract, said I'll go back. I'll do this for you. And that's all I see is that everything that I've went through, it starts off as a learning curve through the time that where I had the asthma attack. There's another incident not too long afterwards where I talk about this, where I had my first experience that I walk out on the street and there's a little boy dead on the ground. He just got hit by a car. And I knew who it was, even though I couldn't see the body, because I felt his soul was beside me trying to communicate with me. He wound up being my soccer teammate. He accidentally got killed. And then other things where at 10 years old, you think you're fast. And I ran across the street and I hear the brakes hit and this guy jumps out and he screams at me and I'm running for my life. He's chasing me and he chased me into my dad's place. And he told my dad that I hit your son. Like I went through the car. He saw me go through his car. And they pulled me out of the bed. Of course, I have no marks, no scratches on me or anything. And that was that glorious hit. That's because 2 angels grabbed me and physically, in a sense, pulled me through. He actually saw me go through the car. So all these different events were happening as I was growing, but it got stronger and stronger and stronger. It wants to prepare you for what will come. Now, did I want to move into that haunted house? No, but something pulled me in that house for a reason. The picture I took. Did I ever know that these spirits were in the window? No, but it took 22 years later for something to possess me to go find that picture and post it. And then it's like uncovering an old crime, where he thought he can get away with it, but you can't get away with it because with the universe, you can't hide. Everything that you have done will surface. And even when you go home and cross over, you're going to have a life review. You're going to see all the good and bad that you've done. They're not here to judge us. We're here to learn, to be a better soul, to how we can, if we decide we want to come back and live another life, then, maybe this time we'll do it right. we're to the point we're going to graduate from this world and move off to another place and start a whole new journey. So these events were being played out step by step. And it's funny when you look back at it, numerology was also playing a role. And that's another big thing I talk about, how all these numbers were connecting. And it's like, why is this happening? This is how it's supposed to happen. So, and then even till this day, as I'm talking to you, things haven't stopped in my life. I'm still strongly connected to the universe. I still get visited by spirits. I have presence of angels. It doesn't happen every day, but there's times I'll wake up and there'll be one standing in my room looking at me. And it's like, oh, hey, how you doing? You get used to it. It's just who we are as spirit.
I hear that a lot from folks who have a lot of experiences. I myself do not, but I talk to a lot of people that go, it's funny what you get used to. It's just another day. So it's of interest to me that you lived in that haunted home and what that heinous demon on earth man did to his wife, his daughter, and other women. And then your friend, she had that reaction, or your neighbor rather, that she walked in and she grabbed her throat. And then you and Bear, your dog, end up both with lung cancer.
Well, see, the thing is that like for Bear, the cancer was filling his lungs up, so he was suffocating. For me, the mass was on the lung, but I had spotty marks all over my bones. So the lymphoma was spreading through my body. But what's kind of strange too is that was 94. In 2000, I had a friend recommend that I go speak to this lady. She said she's really, really gifted. And again, there's always part of us where we're still sort of skeptical about things. I'm not a cynic where you can show me the proof, I still won't believe it. But we all have that kind of cynical side to us, like, okay, prove to me that it's there and I'll believe it. So I went to visit this woman and I walked into her apartment and she's just looking at me and all her lights are flickering. And she says to me, she goes, "What did you bring in here with you?" And I just kind of look at her and go, "I don't know. What did I bring in here?" And she said, "You're surrounded by angels," she said, "but they're all like dressed like warriors." And I said, "Oh, okay." So we sat down and she pulled out her cards and she made me shuffle them and cut them in three. And she flipped the three top ones over and she's looking down. First thing she says to me, she goes, "You were sick." Now, the one thing I suggest to people, if you're having a reading, don't say anything. If you want a good reading, let's see if they're real. Because if they're real, the cards are going to speak and the truth will come out through the cards. So she says to me after that, she goes, "You had cancer." And I still didn't say anything to her. So she looks at me and she says, "Can you at least tell me?" So I figured, okay, I can give her that. So I told her I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. She said, "Oh, that's bad." And this was the freakiest part of this reading. She looks straight at the cards, and as she raises her head really slowly, the white of her eyes are just looking at me. I don't see her pupils. And I'm freaked out at this point. And then her eyes go back to being normal, and she says to me, "But you died." Now I'm sitting back there just going, how does she know this? And she brought up some other things that she was spot on. So I knew she was getting information from the other side. And in the end, she said, "I wish I had more time, Shawn." She said, "I have another client coming in," but she said, "I would love to do your past lives." But she says, "I'm just going to let you know, you've had over 50 past lives already." She said, "This is your last one." And I thought that was kind of funny because like when I was younger, I used to joke with people by saying, "Yeah, this is my last life. I really don't want to come back here." And then she tells me this, which means this is probably be my last time here on Earth, but it doesn't mean it's going to be my last life somewhere else. I'm just going to move on because I've learned enough here to share enough to people. My book is like a roadmap. It's gonna guide lost souls back to the light. And I did what I was supposed to do. There's a few more things left that I have to complete before I go home. But when I do go home, I know there's going to be things that I'll be doing somewhere else throughout the universe, which I actually look forward to.
Well, Shawn, I really appreciate you reaching out. Please let everyone know where to find you. Mention that YouTube channel that you brought up so folks can see the videos and all of that. And of course, where to find the book.
Well, the book could be found on Amazon. Just put in Fallen from the Light. There's a few other books that are using the same title, but then just put my name in and it'll come up. And Shawn Barry Farewell, YouTube. I have videos on there, but you'll find the three basement videos. And just sit back, put a headset on, and just watch closely.
Well, thank you so much, Shawn. I truly appreciate your time and sharing today.
Well, thank you for having me, Shannon.